seats waiting to hear where we're headed with ambition? Where is this all leading? I hope you're all curious. I have to tell you, it is so special. Like there are so many times, always in class, that I find the rhythm of my day, the rhythm of my life, and so many times I like pause or think about something that was said in class, or think about something that we learned together. And while I can no way say that I am here in this level that we're describing right now, I am so grateful for all of you, for the opportunity to learn this with you and to unpack these ideas, because I always think to myself, like, if I wasn't learning this, it wouldn't even be on my radar. So sometimes I win and sometimes I lose, sometimes I do the right thing and sometimes I don't. But to just constantly have that running narrative through my mind, I'm really extremely grateful to all of you. That's really such a gift. And as we started this whole series, but just a reminder, like, the series of the book itself is called Strive for Truth. So I can't really claim to be there. I don't know. Maybe some of you are there. I am certainly not, but
Oh, we're way ahead of you.
very possibly, very possibly. So we're still in the middle of this chapter of giving and taking. We'll see, depending on how many comments we get into over here. It's so magnificent. And we're really just about to get to the idea of, well, then, is there really such a thing as a good ambition, right? It's such a hard, every time I hear this word now, ambition, it like makes me pause, like, wait, what is it? And we're going to understand where, if you're following the narrative of the themes that we're going through, it's not going to be, you're going to see exactly what the root of it has to be when we're talking about a positive ambition, but we're going to break it down. But I really have to read to you some of the things that he says over here. So first of all, he starts by saying, and just to review, we have discovered that the reason why a craver can never, ever satisfy a satisfaction is because a craving is something like hunger. It will satisfy for a few moments, only until to be not satisfied again, right? That is why they will never really feel any of those results. And so eventually you might think, well, haven't we learned? Haven't we seen from life experience that moment of satisfaction for whatever it is, whether it's, to make more money, or to get another thing, or to acquire another degree, or to get a promotion, like, it's only going to last for a certain amount of time until it's on to the next. So haven't we learned? So he quotes from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, which is written by the wisest of all men, Shlomo HaMelech. King Solomon was known to have been the wisest of all men. And he says, Hevel Hakol Hevel, that everything in life, other than the category that we're going to define, we will get to it today, is all vanities. It's all for nothing. Vanity of vanities, said Kohelet. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. That is what he writes, those lines. Vanity is the desire for the glories of this world. What is outside a person can have no real value for him. Outside a person, okay? There's your clue. What is outside of a person can have no real internal value. Vanities are all those occasions when he thinks he has obtained his heart's desires, only to find that he is not really satisfied. That this process is repeated over and over again. It is the clearest indication that everything that he may desire in the future is also vanity. It really makes you question everything. And the bottom line is that unless we're going to get to the root of what's really going on with what this ambition is driven by, you okay? Okay.
I have a candy. Do you want a hard candy? No.
She swallowed her own, yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Unless we're going to get to the root of what's really going on inside of this ambition, it's just going to continue to happen. And the real thing that we have to recognize is that really, like, it's mamash a life's worth of work. Like, it's really, how long can you attain that in? At least a lifetime and a few extra days. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, really a whole life to be able to devote to this topic, to be able to really understand.
Because you can't understand it, really.
Well, we are gonna get to a little bit. By the end of today, you're gonna understand it a little bit more. You're gonna understand what the root is going to be. If you can channel, if you could pivot the attitude and understand, you'll have a little bit more clarity by the end of the day.
Hevel means vanity?
Hevel means vanity, and not like your sink vanity,
Right,
like
right.
like
Vanity.
nothingness,
Being vain.
pettiness, exactly.
Yeah, I thought it was like nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't,
Vanity.
didn't know it was vanity.
Vanity is nothing, no?
Yeah.
Same thing,
well,
just different word.
but
Okay.
Isn't vanity good also?
I don't know, is
You
it?
want to look nice when you go to shul or you're.
Well, is that vanity?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
He's never used.
Isn't it? Is it?
Vanity is not used in a positive way.
right.
Again, this is a translation. I find that the Hebrew version is so much more on point, but vanity is, no, not anything that's,
Well, we put makeup on so that we look good, so that we present to the world.
So
how
that
nice
it's-
we look.
well, it depends.
So
So-
that might be
That's not
holiness, that might be, adorning yourself according to the occasion, with the right.
So what we're gonna see in a few moments, and I'll mention it here now because you're saying like, well, isn't that vanity? When you strip it down, when you start to actually go through, like peel away, like layer by layer, like why?
Hmm.
Why? Was anyone here
I don't think any of us.
were you here on my that Project Inspire trip
No.
when I did, but who are you, but who are you? but
No,
who-
it
Okay.
was like before that.
Okay, so I did one Project Inspire workshop. I thank God I've had the opportunity to run many of them, and every time it's new workshops and new. So I always have to like be on the top of my game in terms of creating some more content. But I remember that one time we were trying to do a workshop of really getting to the essence of our soul, and so I had like two people come together. It wasn't on your trip either, and you had to say, who are you?
Mhm.
And they would answer, but who are you? Next layer,
Thinking.
but who are you? But who are you? It took like 2 minutes till you finally would strip it down. Most of the crowd that I was dealing with was finally able to get to recognize, who are you? I'm a soul. That's the bottom line. If you really strip it down. So it's a similar idea over here. When you ask yourself, well, I put on makeup, I want to look nice, but why? Why are you doing that? And if the reason that hits the core is vanity, then it's vanity.
What other reason is there?
We'll break it down.
Not to
There's
scare
100 other
someone.
reasons that could be wonderful.
The definition of vanity is excessive pride in or admiration of one's own appearance or achievement. So I think,
I don't like that definition though. I don't think that's like,
well, I think excessive.
Hevel is not excessive pride though. I know, but Hevel in Hebrew is not excessive pride. That doesn't,
It's also, the second one is the quality of being worthless or futile.
futile.
Yeah.
Futile is a much better translation of Hevel than
Oh.
excessive.
Because I think you're thinking of making yourself look nice.
Well, I
It's
think
not
on
vanity,
anything.
you know, it's like.
I mean, I'm on a diet now. I want to look better, or I run around.
Yeah, but why?
But it's the outer layer, not the inner layer.
Makes you feel better. I mean,
Right,
take last week
right.
as an example. I was like so down in the dumps, and then when I got myself dressed, put on a little makeup,
Mhm.
came here, interacted with everyone, I felt better. I then
1000%.
contributed more to my family. I went and got the chicken, like I.
FOMO, that fill me in.
It made me feel better that I contributed.
We talked
more.
about,
Trader Joe's kosher.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, but 1000% what Beth is saying.
Contribute, it
Yeah.
actually has me feel like I'm activating more of my trauma. when I-
Exactly, which is why we're gonna get there today, but which is why when you have to ask yourself why. And if the reason is really just stopping right there, then it truly is vanity. It really is vanity, but usually there's so much more. In fact, Judaism teaches us hachitzonius me'oreres es hapnimius. The externals always affect the internals. So in order to be able to feel that way, you have to sometimes act that way. You have to put on the externals. You have to, I don't know.
Confidence, self-confidence.
I follow a fashionista, and that's her whole mantra: get up, get dressed.
Yes, it's Caroline. Yeah. I follow her too.
Yeah.
Is she the Tuttle lady, the Dress for Truth lady?
No,
No.
It's a dress kind of like you then, but I think we're going to like a little bit deeper, like, but it's
Yeah,
similar to what she's
yeah,
saying. You
yeah.
get up, you get dressed, you contribute, you feel better about
Like,
yourself.
She was in California during the fires, and as there's fires all over her, not knowing of her house, and getting to I got up, I put my makeup on, you know.
Mhm.
Feel
Interesting.
good, feel good about yourself, you're worth it, you're good.
Put on 50 bracelets.
Yeah,
No.
I showed.
But I think, whatever, we'll break it down a little bit more, but I think, again, Tammy, don't forget what we said.
Adorable.
You could have two people doing the exact same act.
Mm.
Also putting on 50 bracelets, putting on their makeup, doing the thing, and one of them is
No offense.
yeah, she was putting on her swagger.
I love bracelets.
Yeah, but the point is that one of them will be able to say, but this is not Hevel, this is not futile, this has real purpose. And for the other one, it really might be futile.
That is a really deep topic. And it might not be what you want to talk about today, but that I feel like is really meaningful. Because I have found that a lot in life. I feel like we've talked about it too, is that you can want to like look a certain way and feel good and like certain things, and it doesn't mean that you are like superficial and that you're going to necessarily have a lot in common with somebody else that likes nice things. And so I feel like it is sometimes misleading. Like
Yeah.
people judge you
Mhm.
when you want to put, well, why did you put makeup on? Well, I feel better. It's not like for you, it's not, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
It's very about two people could be doing it for very different reasons. or
Absolutely.
You could have more depth.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And the only person who really knows the depth of it is yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you're going to sit down and have like a really deep conversation with somebody and like explain, like, let me just explain. But usually you don't want to explain and you want to just know, like, no, I am being true. This is where I'm at. And it works the opposite also. We had said in class also, you can have somebody going through all of the spiritual things, all of life, and looking a certain way. And if it's completely empty and it's just a shell, they're doing the same exact thing and they're like living two completely different lives. So that's also food for thought, you know? So we just, life is so, we live in an olam hafuch. Like I said last time, like it's mamash, like it is an upside down world. Everything is so warped. It's just so warped. And there's a story in the Gemara that talks about somebody almost died, like a near-death experience. Did I share this with you already? Like a near-death experience? And that he went up to this next world, and when he came back down, they said to him, like, what did you experience? And he said, Olam hafuch ra'iti. I saw an upside down world. I saw that everything that we're living in is backwards. That was his clarity when he experienced that other world. We're living in a very upside down world. So the things that we see are very backwards. And gosh, I mean, yes, it's true.
You don't have to die to see that.
Right, but he saw it. He saw it. And don't forget, this was like
clarity.
a long time ago. It was a very different world. We're coming from far away. Okay, Amy had her hand up so nicely and quietly.
No. I just think that it's so weird with these, sorry. I think that what this is referring to in the book is so different than putting makeup on, or I don't think that's what's being it's
Well,
so
we're talking about ambition. We're talking about ambition, but Tammy brought up that with vanities, that idea of like what is futile. But we're gonna
ambition.
move forward with ambition either way.
Perfect.
You are right. He's taught, yes.
Okay.
So that is such an important, idea over here. Another thing that we must realize, this is really important, is that the concept of possessing, he puts into quotations, or owning property can often be very misleading. He puts into parentheses, my property is not my own in the same sense as my arms and legs or my thoughts are my own. No one can ever own an outside object so that it becomes united with him and part of him like his body, let alone his soul. Did we already read this? Does this sound familiar to you guys? No. Okay.
No.
I didn't put a thing here, but now I'm like, I read this a few times. The concept of ownership must be defined operationally. It means simply that certain objects are to be used by person X and are not to be taken by someone else without his permission. It goes ill with the person who yearns to attach himself to that which is not possible to attach oneself. His desire can never be gratified, and he will be left with nothing but pain. Happy is the person, this is extremely deep. Happy is the person whose desire is to increase the acquisitions of his true self, his soul. So that really is the key line right there. I'm going to finish the paragraph, but that really is going to be the transition point in what he's talking about. Nothing can prevent him from fulfilling his desire, and there is no force in the world that can ever deprive him of such acquisitions. He is happy and secure in this world and in the next. So what he's essentially teaching us over here is that the only thing that one can really have an ambition for is something that is actually part of yourself. And there are very few things, unless they fall into the spiritual realm, that are really soul deep, that are actually part of yourself. The things that we think of, if you think about all of the things that we think about acquiring or having ambition towards, they're all external from ourselves. Anything, monetary, fame, extra degrees, status, fill in the blank, anything. It's not who you really are. It's not. You might think, but I've accomplished, but I learned, but it's my brain, but it's not. It's not. The only thing that is really your true capital S self is really anything that's attached to the neshama, to the soul level. Once you turn it into a spiritual acquisition, then it has now become a part of you. It's real, what we call in Hebrew, it's actual devekos. It's real, it's clinging. And that is what he's about to tell us. That is actually the good type of ambition.
But it's so hard. Society is the
It's-
exact opposite.
Yeah.
The exact opposite. They're, you know, what you said, degrees,
Mhm.
you know, business.
Emotions.
Except the accomplishment of
Emotion.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that because anytime, you remember when I said this with happiness, God doesn't dangle something in front of us and be like, well, here, this is the way that it's just like naturally feels good. So it must have nothing to do with me. We said that with happiness. Like he's not like hanging something here, like try to feel happy and like never really feel happy. The fact that when we asked the first question, when we first started introducing this topic of ambition, I remember Tammy was like, her first response, ambition is great. It's so good to be an ambitious person, right? The fact that we think of ambition in a good way means that obviously God has created a part of the universe that there is supposed to be some level of this ambition. There is supposed to be. But what you're saying, you have to, what Lynn is saying is, well, what do you mean? A knowledge or a degree, isn't that a part of you? Well, is it or is it not? So there's a line. Well, it depends.
Depends what you do with it.
It
and what you're
depends.
learning.
It depends what you're learning.
Yeah.
It depends why you're learning.
Makes you a better person or.
Mhm.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So here is why we're gonna read this inside, but this is why, I don't know if any of you ever thought of this, but we're still in the section of Kuntras HaChesed, which is the chapter of kindness. We're still under the segment of being of being givers and takers. And now there's this whole like side rail, right? This whole like side note that we just went off on ambition. What is the connection between ambition and between being a giver and taker? So this is it. This is it. When anything that you do comes from a source of being a giver, that's your automatic clue that it must be a positive source of ambition. If it comes from a source of being a taker, that's your negative side to knowing that ambition is negative.
Mhm.
Exactly. This is all where we're headed. Meaning, where does this all stem? So you could, same thing, you could have two people trying to acquire certain knowledge. One of them is trying to do it at a complete place of just wanting to better the world, just wanting to give, just wanting to help, just wanting to connect with other people. The other one, only doing it for his own thing. That's the only reason why, for more, for more, for more. So here you have ambition and ambition. One of the ambitions is actually connecting him to this true sense of self, capital S. It's a soul ambition. And the other one is from a source of taking, which can never ever lead to good. Remember we said in the beginning, it's either you give or you take. It's really not possible. And this is also like totally mind-boggling, and I don't even claim to fully understand it, but it's not really possible to be somewhere in the middle. It's like either it's It gets gray in our own minds, but like according to Rav Dessler, like it's either this or that.
Devorah,
Yeah.
it makes me think that most people are in a slumber, like they're
Oh, good. That was one of the words that I
Nobody-
jotted down.
I don't know
Yes.
why that comes to mind, like, everyone thinks that all these things that you're gaining are are ambitiously good. They're not even connecting to the inside. It's all outside of
Correct.
them. And nobody's, I mean, they're just not making that connection.
Exactly, 1,000%. So a few things. So, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there's a few lines over there. First of all, Yonah, in the book of Jonah, which we read on Yom Kippur, there's a very, very famous line there. If you remember the story, the sailors come down. They're finding Jonah who's sleeping at the bottom of his boat. And they say to him the very famous words, Yonah, ma lachan yardam? Why are you asleep? Kum kara Elokecha. Scream out to your God. What are you doing sleeping right now? Hello, this boat is about to go under. You have all these people on this boat. Why are you asleep?
Yeah.
And this line of Malachan Nirdam has become one of the reasons that we read the book of Yonah on Yom Kippur. When we beg God for the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, when we beg, Zachrenu l'chaim, remember us for life, this is what we're talking about. Remember that life is either life, you're either living, or you're going to say a slumber, but in a much more morbid way, you're either living or you're dead. So that when we're asking really for a book of life, to write us in the book of life, we're asking to be alive. We're not just asking to go through life, like to have a heart that beats. We're asking for life, to not just go through life in a slumber, to not just feel like there are literally people who are zombies that are walking through this world slumbering. They're walking through this world really dead. In the beautiful parsha in the Torah that we read of Jacob's ladder, right? That famous analogy of Jacob having the dream and he sees the angels all climbing up and down the ladder. This has become the symbol for so much of what Judaism and Jews stand for, this like Jacob's ladder. And the idea is that in Judaism, we don't believe that there is ever a place of stagnation. You're either going up or you're going down. It's impossible to just stagnate, which is really crazy. I used to hear the analogy like life is like a downhill. This is even like a level deeper. It's like it's like an escalator that's going down. You're either going down or if you're not actively climbing up, because it's much easier to be pulled down than to be pulled up. But to think of life, you don't stagnate. It's not possible to stagnate. If you feel like you're at a stalemate, you're likely going down. Unless we're actively climbing up the ladder, we have probably hit stagnation. And stagnation, like I'm telling you, there really is no such thing. So I used to hear a quote, yeah,
Sometimes I get the feeling of trying to walk up the down escalator.
yes,
Yeah.
that is definitely very true. That is very true.
Like spinning your wheels.
But
That for
in what sense? Give me an example.
I'm not just,
Life?
yeah. Think you're trying, you wake up like tired and exhausted and like you have to pull yourself up and you're like really fighting to walk up.
Yeah.
It's just like.
It's just falling down. Yeah. So it depends. I'm saying, physical tiredness.
Eat more chicken. Eat more chicken.
I really missed something with this chicken. Yes.
A woman
Sounds delicious.
You have to get her.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to
I
slow
know.
down more, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Slow down. I mean,
Um,
take care of
I
yourself.
think it's also.
tiredness. I mean, if you're talking about mere tiredness, if that's the down, but I have something very encouraging to tell you. Yeah.
Just thinking, I think it's also the circles we live in. Because if you're with people that are of like mindset, I think it'd be easier.
You know what? It's
Very
actually,
true.
it's turning.
This is a hard mindset, though. I'm saying like,
You feed off each
People
other.
aren't in-
yeah, most people are not in this mindset.
That's what I'm saying, most people don't even speak our language. People that are in this class, I mean, my friends that aren't on a Torah living.
Yeah, this is a different
Like,
language.
I find like we're not connecting in so many areas because things that are important to them aren't important to me anymore, and
So
things that are
interesting.
important to me aren't
Right.
important to them.
We would try with people to try to convey what it is that we're getting here, and people would look at us like, what?
I mean, think about it, even for us, like, I don't know, when I'm learning this stuff, I'm like, wow, like, it's like light bulbs are going off,
Yes.
you know? So
Yeah.
if we're here, like, learning it, so if someone's like outside of the class and just like hearing it, it's like, huh, like, it's like a certain, yeah, so I think I agree with Lauren, like you say, it's about who you associate with, but majority of the people that we are with are not necessarily in this type of mindset. So
agree.
yes, it's very important to try to find those people. That's why we're so lucky to have each other. You know, that's why I'm saying, like, I don't take it for granted that we have this group. Like, even in my circle, some of my friends will look at me and be like, huh? Like, what? Like, what language are you speaking? So it's very important to be with like-minded, but that is so on point what Lauren said about she feels like everybody is just slumbering because we're all going through, but it's like void, it's like empty. We could have so many people that are striving, but they're striving for the wrong thing. It's like the target is completely off. And it's the reality of what we're living
We
with.
all
So
be playing pickleball right now. Instead of being
exactly. I want to say, my father used to always quote this, and he used to quote it from a number of different people, but this should be very encouraging to you. And he quoted it, I remember him quoting it from the Chavetz Chaim and from Rabbi Strauss Salanter, and it's said much better in Yiddish, which I'm not going to say, but it's that man does and God accomplishes.
Man,
Ah.
and God love.
It's not that. That's a different one. That's man plans and God laughs. But this is man does and God accomplishes, which means all God is going to ask of us is, did you do? Did you strive? Did you try? What you accomplished, that's on me. What you actually acquired, what you actually got, that's me. That's a godly force. But what you did, that's on you. That's all he's going to say.
Intention and progress.
That's all God wants to know. Did you try to climb up the ladder?
Yeah.
Did you try to get to the next rung? Or did you just kind of become what you thought was complacent and slowly fall down the ladder? So and what we actually accomplished, that's not on us. So that feeling of like walking down the down escalator, as long as you're trying, that's what matters. That's what you'll be judged for, and that's what really the difference is going to make. What actually happens is not in your hands. That's where we surrender and we say, God, I tried, you know, right? For somebody, I used to tutor somebody who was severely learning disabled. And I don't even know why I was tutoring this person. I'm not really, I don't know, maybe the mother just wanted her to be in the presence of somebody who, you know, that the ideas would like somehow have a difference. But I just remember that feeling of like, this is not entering. Like every single time it was like starting over, like every single session that we'd have. And at one point I realized, like, you know what? Exactly this idea that my father always used to say, like, all I can do and all she can do is just do. What is actually penetrating and what's actually making a difference? That's only God can do that. I don't know, but like I'm doing my share. She's certainly doing her share by showing up. Like we're doing our thing, you know, but we're doing. That's the part that's so important.
And you never quite know where the effort is gonna land, you know? She may have woken up.
For sure.
One day and said, oh, Ima, da-da-da-da-da, and it's like, wow, something did click. And
Yeah.
you may not know.
Yeah, true,
But it may have affected her in
True.
different ways.
true.
So we keep trying.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure with Torah learning, that's for sure.
And also reminds me of what we said when we received the Torah, like we will listen and we will do.
Yeah,
We didn't say we'll accomplish, we'll, you know,
Right.
we will just do. We
right,
will
exactly.
Take action.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, very well said. Exactly. So yeah, I think that this is so key. So when we think about this, as we're going to transition now into this next thing where he's going to exactly define, which we're leading up to on good ambitions, but it's important for us to recognize those two things. Number one is that there's very little that's actually a part of our inner, of who we really are. Right? Like we said, like a house doesn't belong to us the same way that an arm belongs to us, or the same way that anything inside of our soul belongs to us. Certainly not a piece of jewelry or anything external like that. That's not who we are. And the second thing is that in understanding that happy is the person whose desire is to acquire more of his true self, that's where the happiness really lies. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading over here on the good ambitions, okay? We shall have to reflect a little more deeply at this time. Hunger indicates a deficiency. So you think, right? It is the lack of the food that the body requires that causes physiological hunger. And so it is with other desires. To desire means to feel the lack that which is desired. When you're hungry, when you're really feeling hungry, it's I want something because there is a lack. I want something. Thus, ambition and desire are forces by which a person draws to himself those things which he believes will make the deficiency which he experiences. When does the satisfaction come if we're trying to make those things satisfy us? Satisfaction comes when the need is then fulfilled. But as we have seen, desires which originate in the faculty of taking are never going to be satiated. This is where, if you're going to continue that narrative down the line, it's going to hit a difference. I'll explain in a second. Because the deficiency to which they refer is not capable of fulfillment. So if you take, let's say, Lynn's example again of acquiring a degree, a certain level of knowledge, something. If you have it from the giver's perspective versus the taker's perspective, if you continue to ask them, well, why? Why do you want it? Why do you want it? Why do you want it? The one who's going to be a giver will eventually hit something that will actually satisfy. The taker will never be able to hit that point. Even if you just continue that narrative, they're going to hit a point, it's never going to feel, like now I could, because it's that same idea of the target without being able to really get to that target. It's always the moving target. Does that make sense? So that's where you can have two people doing the same thing, but if it's coming from being a giver versus being a taker, and you go through that conversation with both of them, it's going to hit two different endpoints. The one, I'm just repeating this, the one that's going to be coming from being the giver will hit a place of satisfaction, and the one that's going to come from a taker will not. Now he's going to get into a little bit more, is there really such a thing as satisfying when it's even when it's coming from a giving point as well, which we're going to get to. Meaning a real giver at their core, does a giver really ever feel satisfied?
No, because they want to keep giving more.
Exactly. But that is what he would define as healthy ambition. Okay? What of the faculty of giving? It is not a force which draws things to us from outside ourselves. It arises from fulfillment and not from deficiency. That is the line. When you want to know if something is actually a good, but I still want more, I still want more. Well, is it coming from a place of fulfillment or is it coming from a place of deficiency? And the last line over here, he just writes, let us consider this carefully. And he's going to give an example. But if you think about that, that is so profound. Somebody who wants to always, always, always be a giver, really for selfless giving. Remember, we defined that sometimes there are people who give and it's really selfish. So we're talking about real selfless giving, okay? Somebody who really is a giver at their core. The only way that you'll know that their satisfaction is really their hunger has been really actually satiated is because they will feel fulfilled. Whereas somebody who's really a taker and is trying to be a taker through the art of giving, it's just going to be trying to feel more desire. It's never going to come from a place of fulfillment. There's a kind of person for whom material things holds no attraction. He's just interested in them. He does not consider them important enough. He's happy with what he has and satisfied with whatever he gets. This ability is a blessing from God, as it says, V'achalta v'savata. These are words that are written in the Torah, which we actually say in the Birkat Hamazon when we eat our bread, which are, he will eat and he will be satisfied. It is truly great. It is truly a great gift from Hashem to man, a gift which enables him to be complete, rather than deficient. And this is the purpose for which he was created. When we say those words in the benching, when the Torah talks about that, those words, v'achalta v'savata, what Rav Dessler is explaining over here is that it's not even just talking about physical hunger and physical satisfaction. It's the idea of wanting and feeling satisfied with whatever our lot is. So ultimately, you're going to see how this is going to come back to a place of gratitude, which is going to lead us back into the topic of happiness, which is why he started with happiness first. If we, and I'm just going to ask, has anybody ever met and when you read that description, when I read that description to you, there are people who don't need anything physical to be happy. Does somebody specific jump into your mind?
I have some Haredi cousins that,
Yes.
you know, their dining room chairs are white plastic like we have outside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's their house. They don't have a living room.
Okay, but when you think about people, like when they fit this description, they don't need anything. Okay, okay, good. Anyone else have anybody that they know like that?
Yes.
Okay, Renee says her husband, he doesn't need anything physical. Okay, beautiful.
As long as it's Torah, he doesn't need the Chumash.
Okay, so that's spiritual, that's beautiful.
Oh,
That's beautiful.
that's really.
You could bring him.
Who said yes on Zoom? What'd you say?
She should bring him in for showing him.
Yeah. You should live and be well. Who said on Zoom? Who said that they know somebody? Yes,
I
Amy.
do. My mother-in-law, but she's passed away, but she was like that.
Tell us more.
She was very giving in every way, and when you talked to her, all she cared about, she looked at you and all she cared about is your life and your words, and she really was selfless and didn't care about pretty, you know, she always looked clean and stuff, but she didn't care about the
It didn't phase her, right? Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Follow Caroline.
Sure.
Your grandma.
Your grandmother. I always remember the tissue.
Yeah, my grandmother. But my
Yes.
grandmother, I love everything about her. But I cannot describe her like that. She liked nice stuff. I just got some of her stuff. I was very, very, very lucky. Very happy. Yes, I actually wore one of her bracelets the other day, and my 40-year-old cousin who's the same age as me, I walked in, he's like, "You got Bubby's bracelet?" I was like, "Yes, this is Bubby's." Yes. So if you see anything nice on me, just assume it was my grandmother's. We just divided it up between all the girls.
Oh,
And my mother
Right.
saved some stuff for my brother's wife. He's still single. So she's like, "I still have one more son that I need to marry off. So his wife is gonna also need." Yeah, so- yeah, thank God. So I cannot say that about her. And by the way, for those of you who saw my Marilyn Monroe post, I had to put my grandmother was obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. So that's why like that whole post came from like my grandmother.
beautifully written,
Yeah.
that post. I love
Yeah,
it.
thank you. Yeah.
Your grandmother was collecting all that stuff, enjoying it as she was living, but thinking one day I want to be able to give it to my.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 1,000%. I want to just bring this, I want to bring this idea home. I just want to go through continuing on. Is there anybody else? I have a few people.
I feel like you have.
I have a few people. They're very holy people. And then there's like levels, like there's like, I break it down.
Sure.
I shared with this class many times that one example where I was so blessed to be able to go into the home of Rav Pinchas Scheinberg and
Wow.
clean his home for Passover. And I remember it with such clarity, like I could still smell the smells, I could still feel the talesim, I could like be there in his house like as if it was yesterday, it was over 20 years ago. But I think about him and his wife, the joy that they lived, and the simplicity that they lived with. They didn't need much. That was somebody that I had encountered. I had seen that simplicity. You can feel it, you know? Yeah.
I think of the two people who came to mind.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm really wondering
Yeah.
what you think. Are your mom came to mind as soon as you were reading it,
Mm-hmm.
and Shlomo's father came to mind.
Oh, Shlomo's father.
Like people who are like super, like you were saying about like your husband, like he's just.
He doesn't need anything. Yeah.
Your father-in-law.
He just wants to be talking about. the
Right, that is true.
the
Yeah, he
prayer
does not
and-
need anything.
So great. Wow.
Yeah, just his lazy boy. Just his lazy boy. Just his recliner.
Oh,
His recliner and a book, yeah.
But you know, I don't think you necessarily have to be religious to be this type of person.
Well, that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm
I read
asking.
about somebody
Yeah.
the other day who was a teacher, I think was he a teacher or a farm? I can't remember if he was a farmer, but he lived very simply. He made his money, he ended up, giving, when he died, or maybe it was before he died, he was able to give scholarships to 33 people to college.
Mm,
He had not really gone to college. He had a simple life, but he didn't need. And
Mm.
this is the kind of
great.
person he was.
yeah, I absolutely agree with you. You don't have to be a religious person. That's why I was curious to hear. I never met Mother Teresa, but I would imagine that she was somebody who fell into this category. I just can't imagine that like the things that brought her joy.
She was a
Were-
nun.
Yeah,
That alone-
exactly. So I just, so absolutely. I mean,
Mahatma Gandhi.
what?
Mahatma
Yeah,
Gandhi.
yeah. So I think, anyways, it's just a very interesting thing to think of. You know, it's interesting you said my mother. My parents also like nice things, but they have done certain things throughout my life that have made such an impact on me. And I remember that one wedding that they made. At this point, thank God, they've made eight weddings. And there was one wedding that they were making that there was a very lavish wedding the night before. And there was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of all the flowers that were offered to my parents for the wedding, that they could have these flowers free of charge because they were there anyways. I am not on this level and I don't fully understand, but my parents declined. They said, we will not take the flowers. Please go give them to somebody else. You can donate them to somewhere else. We will not have these flowers at the wedding. And their reasoning at the time was that they're not going to have a sign up by all the flowers. We do not pay for these flowers. People are going to assume and people are going to think, and they didn't want people talking. How did they suddenly afford such a wedding with this level of flowers? So, and I remember that they called us over all, and we girls were like, you what? We were like, please don't even tell this to us. Like all the daughters were like, our mouths were like,
So why did they care so much what people think?
because they didn't want people chatting that,
Right.
you know, that their means suddenly they made this stretch, you know. Yeah, they did. They cared very much. They cared very much what people thought. Yeah.
This was, how many more children were left to be married?
I think this might have been the sixth.
So
yeah.
it's
So
like
then it's
easy
like-
as one of other children, you want to equalize the weddings and it's very.
Maybe, although the weddings were give or take equal, although each of us married someone different. So like
Yeah.
depending on who we married.
I know, but to have that kind of flowers.
It was
one
it was
versus-
big. It was these flowers were a big deal. Yeah. So and I remember when they told it to us, it was more about that moment in time that I remember the feeling inside of my body when like my first reaction was like I was hot. I was like I really like my body got hot. I was like I can't really believe that. Ma, they just would have left them here. Like, what's the big deal? Like, it's now more work for them. They have to like, but it was almost
was
as
the
if they were doing it
perception.
more for us, the children, than for anybody else.
Wow.
Because I remember the way that they told it to us, and they said and they didn't have to say anything. We didn't even know. Nobody knew that this was offered, but they wanted us to know that this was, you know, this was something that was offered to us. This is way above our means. And even though it was offered to us for free, we decided not. I don't know if I would have been on the same level. I don't know. But the point is that was something, you know, that was something that stuck
Wow.
inside. So, and why did they care what people thought? Because they cared. They cared what people thought, especially in that realm, you know, like, oh, suddenly, da da da. So that was something that stuck. But anyway, let's continue on. I think
It's not just what they think, but they're an example.
they are an example. They definitely, and as I'm getting older and I see more and more, I really do appreciate. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it more and more.
They were concerned with the
It was
perception.
left.
Perception, exactly. It was very much about perception.
Yeah,
Yes.
And they would have been just as happy knowing that they went to a hospital or they
Yeah.
went to a school. Or
Yeah,
they
I think my mother said they were not
Right.
thrown away. They just, yeah.
Right. Went door to door, up and down a street and said, here, these are for you and whatever.
Yeah.
And changed many lives as opposed to making it.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't made into like a big Instagram reel where like everyone took a bouquet and walked all over town and delivered all these thousands. I don't know what ended up happening.
But the other people made it happen, that they were brought, sent, given elsewhere,
Right,
and
right,
they didn't go into the dumpster, I'm sure.
right. Right.
Right.
The other example of the person that I also had the privilege of experiencing, and they all were people who lived in Israel, which is like, doesn't surprise me, although there are plenty of people that I could think of maybe that would fall into the same category in America, of course. But my grandfather's cousin was the Rosh Yeshiva. He started the yeshiva in Netivot. He started the yeshiva in the Negev, in the south, and it's called Yeshivat HaNegev. And we stayed in his house, and I remember the simplicity. His bed that my brother slept on was so mushy. I remember my brother got in. I was in 12th grade when we went down on this trip, and I remember that my brother sank into this bed, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, they gave me a water bed." Like it was so mushy. It was so old. But they were fine. They were fine. There's stuff in their house. They really only didn't, they were like, they didn't even want us to stay there. They wanted to put us up at somewhere else. My parents begged for our family to stay there. It was in the heat of the summer. They barely had air conditioning because they didn't even use it on Shabbos. And you're talking about like, when I say happy people, I mean happy, happy people. This couple never even had any children. There was such like I never felt that warmth. What'd you say?
They were happy because they didn't have children.
Lovely.
Whole lives.
Oh, trust me, this man did not sleep his whole life. This woman did not sleep her whole life.
So funny.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, that is just, it's something to think about. So let's
Deborah,
continue on. What time
Deborah,
is it? Yeah. It's time.
Your
Yeah.
parents, like I'm thinking about the example you gave, and you said you weren't even sure why they told you kids about the flowers. They told you because they wanted you to understand probably that
Yeah.
perception that other people have of what you're doing is important. Like
Yeah.
keep that in mind, that what you may be doing, there may not be anything wrong with, but it's how other people perceive it. You need to be aware of it in your life. of
Yeah,
things that
absolutely.
you're
I'm
doing.
sure, Valerie, that is why they said that. And even at the time, we were like, well, better we wouldn't have known. But of course, listen, as parents, we have a responsibility. This is what we have to do. We have to teach. There are other stories that I have with my parents, specifically around weddings, just certain things that happened that we didn't need to be privy to, but they told us, they wanted us to be privy to just so that we would know, just for the sake of letting us know. Okay, I'm gonna just finish off, where should I stop?
Laura, one last tip.
Uh.
Go to Israel, I feel like I don't need anything when I go, like I have a little closet.
Amazing.
Basic, it's so weird, like.
Yeah.
I go there, I don't need anything.
There is I remember Lori Palanik always saying that there is definitely something to that like in America, we need more because we're more needy. Our souls are not as filled. In Israel, your souls are much more filled. You just need less. You're just happier with less.
Wow.
So I definitely think that there is something to that, which is why it's not a coincidence that the examples of the people that I'm thinking of live in Israel. It's just, you're just happier with less.
Wow.
And remember that we're not saying that we have to walk around with nothing. But his example over here is such a real one. Our rabbis say, who is the rich man? One who is happy with his portion. In their majestic wisdom, our rabbis scrutinized the human situation and saw that the one who is satisfied and never hungry can only be one who is working to perfect himself spiritually. He is the only one who is happy with his material portion in life and has no ambition to add to it. He is the rich one. The others, the great majority of mankind, both the haves and the have-nots, are inevitably deficient, poor, and hungry. So that was really a great way of summarizing that ultimately, when it's coming from a place of spiritual fulfillment first, when the spiritual fulfillment is full, that's the hunger is satiated for real. Everything else on top of that is it's just icing on the cake. It's not needed. I don't need anything to be happy. How many times, and we discussed this already, but like how many times we feel the need for something and then we get it in 2 minutes. You see this with children, but it doesn't get better with adults. It just changes. It doesn't become like the Lego set. It becomes fill in the blank, right?
True.
And think about the way that society, you talk about like we're all living in a slumber, like just think about what they're doing. Think about how the phones are changing every month to put out a new and a better. And think about how the technology and the service, that it's always like one step up so that you're never feeling satiated. When you finally feel like, I finally got the iPhone that everybody has. I've been working for so many years to get it. It's good for 6 months. And then the next one has come out and then you're like, oh, I'm already outdated. So think about just the way that the society is working against this mindset. It's totally working again to pull us, and like try to like get us onto a totally different track. So in next class, what we really have to define is the big question, which is how. How do we really try to make sure in this strive, which is a lifetime and a few days worth of effort, in this effort that we're trying to accomplish, like, how do we make sure that we're at least trying with the right tools to get into this correct spiritual ambition? I'm gonna stop the recording here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Oh, Gail likes when I leave on the recording for all the hack.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? I say nobody wants to do the hack when the recording is still on. Gail's like, but then I'm listening. She's like, but then I'm listening and you shut the recording and there's all these good conversations that happen. after you shut
The chicken.
Yeah.
Chicken. Okay. Yes, Amy.
Just a quick thing. It's like when you go into the grocery store in America and there's a bazillion types of X and Y and Z, unlike in Europe, unlike in Israel, other parts of the world. It's so much nonsense that is so wasted and not needed. We don't need 15 kinds of toilet paper to choose from, or cereal, whatever it may be.
Right.
It's just, they're just trying to just inundate you with, I don't know, it's just
Waste
gross. Waste.
Yeah.
And
Wait.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like
100%.
It's just consumption, unnecessary.
Unnecessary
waste.
consumption and
Yeah.
trying to derail us. It's just trying to distract us from what really is so important. It's like
Right.
hanging the little.
I think of television when we were little,
Mhm.
we had like
Yes.
stations.
Yeah.
And now you have hundreds and you're like, it's too much,
Yeah.
totally, you know? So.
Very true.
Anyway.
Totally. Yes, well said.
Devorah, number one's grandmother was the simplest person I think I've ever met.
Number one, who's that?
Her first husband, they had one,
They have names. Number one.
number
They
two,
are
door
doors.
number two.
Yes, Nancy.
And there were things that she had because they came into her marriage or whatever. But I'm lucky to have a couple of things every single time I was there. Oh, why don't you take this? I think you can use this. I mean,
So sweet.
Oh,
Love that.
Nana, I don't need that. Right. Please take it. You'll take it.
so
I
nice.
treasure. I can't even tell you if like there was the LA fire and I had to like run out the door. There
That
are
would-
two things that were her that I would run and get
Wow.
that are meaningless to anybody
Mm.
else, but they were hers. And honest to God, I treasure them.
That
She
is so
was
special.
So simple. She just wanted the time.
Mm.
You're gonna come and we'll have lunch? Yeah, Nana, we'll take you to lunch. I can make, and we would take her out and it was just like, she just.
That's so special.
much. It was
That's
so
beautiful.
Great way to
She was
live.
delicious.
Yeah, it's a great way to live. That's so beautiful. That's a great word. She was delicious. I love that. Let me stop this recording.
Deborah, what part of this do we talk about next week?
The house.